Next week for all 3 classes, I believe I'm going to run a live, just a Google Meet, just to hang out and find out if you guys have any questions, if there's anything that you want done more or less of. Just a chance to see you guys, because I haven't seen you in about 3 weeks since the last live meet for most of you, or 2 weeks because of the activities we might have been running. All right, so I'm done. I will talk to you again next Thursday. Oh, if grade 10s and 11s made it this far, you probably didn't, I'll probably cut this section out and I'll put it before the grade 10s. If you have any ideas of a question of the week, please send them to me. I need better ideas. I need good ideas. I need things that you're engaged with. You know your life. You know what kind of things you're kind of watching, interested, afraid of. So let me know what it is that you're interested in, and I'll take that topic. I'll construct a question of the week, and hopefully we'll get much more engagement, and we'll have some really good conversations. All right. So have a good Thursday. Grade 11s, grade 12s, Bio League. So hopefully you will have a good competition as you compete on the quizzes. If you look at the Bio League, I can't show the grade 12 right now because it's not, I don't think it's updated properly. Grade 11s, you'll notice that between the 2 classes, a whole group of students, that we do have a clear first and second, but it's very, very close. Third is tied. There's a 5th, 6th is tied, and then 8, 9, and 10 is tied, right? You know what the scoring scheme is like. You know that there's still like 6 weeks of learning, so there's many opportunities for people to move up and down in the Bio League competition. So please do participate in the Bio League quiz tomorrow, and remember that the quiz prepares you for the end of the week questions. If you guys noticed last week, 11s and 12s, the Bio League questions and the end of unit questions, some of them were exactly the same. So it's a good preparation. I strongly encourage you to work through both. Friday is the end of the week. You'll have the end of the week questions and all the grades. You'll have the interactive documents to submit, and then whatever other end of the week thing I might have given you. Remember, it's leveled green, yellow, and purple, so do what you can. If you have other things to do, I know some of you are celebrating Ramadan and you're hungry throughout the day, and it's hard to get motivated because it's hard to do that when you're at home. Then, like I said, do what you can do. Don't feel too much pressure. Ask me questions when you get stuck, and I will see you soon. Good morning, Suzuki Science, and here I am on Thursday of week 6. We are here already. Did you expect the end of the week to come by so quickly? Well, I guess I'll start off by recapping our question of the week. I'm not sure if it's because you hadn't seen the video, or if you were overwhelmed with other things, or you were all sleeping for most of the day. I didn't get the same kind of response on this one. So let me talk about this, but not for too long. I was, minding my own business, doing my work, and then I received this text from former students that went here, and they're like, "Sir, have you seen this video? Okay, you have to watch this video." So I clicked on it, and the link didn't work. And then I said it didn't work, and I moved on. And okay, we really, really, really need you to see this video. You have to watch this video, and we want your opinion. And so they went searching for another link, and they found it, and then they're like, as soon as we find it, watch it, which I did. Well, it was 26 minutes, so any video that's 26 minutes, I really had to be in the right place, the right time to spend that kind of, moments on watching a video. I didn't watch the whole thing. But on came this lady, and she started talking about everything that was bad in the world with COVID and all these conspiracies, and they're tying it all together. But it was all so slick. At the beginning, it felt like it was like a CNN or a CBC or a CBS or something where there was an interviewer talking to her, and I was kind of listening. But then she said something about vaccinations, and the interview was like, "So you are anti-vax?" And she was like, "No, I'm not. I'm just, I'm an immune specialist and this and that," and everything was just so preposterous. I could not listen to anymore. But evidently out in the world, there was 8 million people who looked at this thing within like 24 or 48 hours, which is a lot of people. So after they sent it to me, I had made the assumption that everyone had seen it. But I was glad to see, honestly, that you guys have better things to do with your time, because not a single person who responded had actually seen this video. And if you went and wasted your time, and I don't want to say wasted your time, you should have the ability to critically and analyze things. But if you have the wherewithal to go after and check out the video, hopefully you're able to do some serious critical analysis. So looking at your results, looking at your responses here, many of you, it was similar to the conspiracy theory weekly question we had 3 weeks ago, and many of you said some things very similar. All of you said, no, I've not heard this video. No, I've not seen this video. But you then went on to say why you believe that this video was so picked up and why it went viral and why people are just looking for an answer. A couple of you mentioned confirmation bias, that they have an idea of what they think is going to happen, and anything that will support it, they're like all over it. Yeah, look, this is going to support it completely. This video is really well done in terms of its slickness, but you just have to spend a little bit of time, do a little bit of research, and then use your own wherewithal to understand that this was very much an ill message, a message that's meant to kind of break the establishment and get people thinking that all is not well in the world. We already know that all is not well in the world. So I would encourage you to stay away from those sorts of things and just look for things that are positive, that are real and are factual. So I was interested in reading your comments, and many of you had excellent things to say, and many of you said you had not seen it and you moved on. All right. So I thought maybe I'd share some of the things that I've been doing this week and what I've been reading over the past little while, and I'll try to do it relatively quickly. I get this email from Grammarly. You probably see those Grammarly commercials, like you just have to click on something once and suddenly it's on your Facebook, Insta, Snap, it's everywhere. On every single ad you see on the internet, everything is so focused on your browsing habits. So Grammarly is something I use when I'm using Word and I'm responding to you guys. My Word spell check checks everything, but when I'm online in text boxes and whatnot, those don't work, but Grammarly works really well. So evidently, I use a lot of unique words. I have a pretty big vocabulary, and it also looks at my tone. And according to this, my tone is informative, which is expected from a teacher who's writing a lot. But friendly, optimistic. Wow, really? I saw this one down here. This one I'm evidently accusing someone of doing something. So that's not very positive, but most of my writing seems to be pretty positive, so that's nice. And a lot of that's because the students I get to write to, you guys have nothing but great things for me to look at and respond to, so that's it's easy for me. So it's that time of year we gotta cut the grass. So here I am cutting the grass. We pulled out the lawnmower. The lawnmower is a riding lawnmower. They're not great on for what they do to the environment, but we have a lot of property. You're not going to clean this or cut this with a regular lawnmower. So we have this riding lawnmower, and we have a septic system. So our septic bed, the grass grows easily 3 times faster than the other grass around it. So this had to be cut, and it had to be raked. So raking is painful. Cutting is easy. You just ride the lawnmower around. It's like an ATV, and then raking is not so much fun. I guess it might be a good workout for the arms and bending up, bending down. Because of where we live, I can just wheel it all the way back there and dump it because that's all our property as well. So cut the grass for the first time, only a part of it, and then Christine did the rest. Darian's working on, he's my youngest. He's the same age as, well, he should be in grade 10, but he's in, he's 15 in grade 11, if that makes any sense. So he's been working on this bio poster for this York bio competition that's happening. I did put the link to the competition in our announcements, so any of you could have been involved with it. You had to combine a biological concept, a physics concept with other science, and so he tried to put biophysics together and look at the biophysics of time. So he's been working on that and asking me lots of questions, so that's been fun to interact with him. The news coming out from the States, I mean, what's going on? What does this guy have? Is that like a rocket launcher? So they're protesting, they're locked down, and they carry weapons around to say that we can carry weapons. I don't even know. I can't even go there. I don't know what the conversation is, but that's crazy. Like, what is going on? What is the purpose of this, except he really thinks it's the end of the world? And there's this battle, these museums. I think it was a Yorkshire museum that started it, and it's called the Curator Battle. So they challenged all these museums across the world. They found their creepiest exhibit, and they said, beat this. And so all around the world, all these museums were going online on Twitter, and they were putting up, using the hashtag Curator Battle, and they're putting up things that they found in their collections. I picked up some of the ones I thought were most creepy. I thought this pin cushion, so it's a cushion that's designed to hold pins, was really creepy. All these little tiny heads. There's something about little tiny baby heads that doesn't sit well with me. And then this other one from another exhibit, they took a monkey, an actual monkey skeleton, somebody probably 150 years ago, and they sewed it to a fish to show this mermaid. And then it was, sold to a circus, or a circus had it showing an authentic mermaid. But I mean, that's really creepy, honestly. I saw this article. It was talking about the cottage experience. I remember the first time I'd heard of a cottage. Well, I heard of cottages before, but the first time I was invited to one, I was in university, and I didn't really understand what the cottage experience was like. And as I read this article was starting to talk about how the cottage experience is really a particular demographic of Ontario or Canada. I mean, they call it the quintessential Canadian experience, but if you talk to a lot of people who immigrate to the country or are kind of like first generation, the cottage doesn't mean much to us. And so I found this article that was very enlightening in terms of this split in this dichotomy of experiences between a certain group of people who have a second home that they go to and they drive many hours to get to, and then they hang out there for a day and a half before they drive back in the city and then do their work. And the other group that's just, in their home and they might go on a vacation every once in a while. It was a really interesting article I found. And another article I read that was interesting was this one about inflammaging. So we'll talk about this in the grade 12s. Your body has a certain age, and it's 1 year, 2 years, 16 years. But when you get to a certain age, let's say 30, 40, 50, you might see a person who's like, you might ask them how old they are, and they'll say like 60. You look at them like, wow, they're 40. I thought they were so much younger. You look at a person who's like 40, and they look like they're 60. And so what's happening in a physiological sense inside the body? And as you age, one of the things that causes your body to break down is this idea of inflammation, as your body is trying to fight things that are going on inside of it. And so the idea of inflammaging is as you age, you get more inflammation, and it makes it difficult for you. If you eat right and sleep right and take care of yourself, your genes help as well, then often you could have a much younger physiological self than if you didn't take care of yourself. There's this company, I can't remember which luxury car company, and they were trying to make a concept car. And so they were looking for anything to inspire them to build new concept cars. And so they want to produce a concept car that's very efficient and is very roomy. And so if you take a look at this particular fish, the yellow boxfish, it has a body that is, it's like a bumblebee. Like bumblebees shouldn't fly. And here's a picture of this thing. It's able to jet and dart around very quickly. It's very agile, and the science has been looking at its body type to find out what allows it to do that so effectively. And so the car designers, it's called biomimetics. When you look at the biological example and you try to imitate a biological example to make your artificial example better. So air conditioning in a shopping mall, if you can imitate what's happening in a termite mound, you can produce air conditioning that is far more effective and far less energy use. It doesn't use nearly as much energy, and they're using the biomimetics. They're using the same structure that the termites are doing in terms of building their tunnels in a certain way to drag in cold air or release warm air from their mounds. So this was very interesting for me to see that they took this very unorthodox fish and they're using its body type in order to build a car, design a car. What is with this weather? It's May, what? This is from 2 days ago, Saturday? 0 degrees. Yeah, that's unusual. And to wake up and see snow, like accumulation that sat around for a part of the day, that's not right. There were a couple of warm days, and so in our neighborhood we have this this maple tree that we planted shortly after we moved in here. I think you might be able to see it in this picture. Yeah, right there to the left. And so a few days before this, I did take some pictures of all these bees that were around pollinating. Like this was the mecca of flowers and pollen and nectar. So all these bees and other pollinating insects were coming in, and so I was able to pull up my nice lens and take some photos. This here is a hoverfly. It could be a swamp fly, I'm not exactly sure. And then we have this black paper wasp. I think in one of my announcements I mentioned that this is not a giant Asian hornet. It's not. These, if you ever see a paper wasp like this, okay, if they sting you it hurts, but they're not out to sting you. They're not very aggressive wasps. Yellow jackets, aggressive. Hornets, aggressive. This paper wasp, you can sit there and just let it fly around. It's not going to sting you. You'll be okay. If you have a sensitivity or you can get anaphylaxis, then yeah, get out of there. But if you're just a normal person that doesn't get much affected by stings, these wasps in particular, unless you really bother them, they won't bother you. in my backyard. I did this on one of the Wild Wednesdays. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And there's these very interesting insects. Their larvae will cut up the little pieces of grass and twigs, and they'll make this little shell. And the shell is what they live in until they undergo metamorphosis and turn into an adult. It's called a caddisfly larva. And so here's one of my setups for the Wild Wednesdays. This is when I did it upstairs and not in my zoo room. And so I brought in a bunch of equipment from school, and I have my, this is where I do most of my work anyway. So I have my monitor and my laptop and the microscope and all those things there. This is my major meal, peanut butter and jam. I love it. If the world ended, I'm not trying to make a fun joke here. If I could only have one meal, this would be it, peanut butter and jam. So that's my staple. But occasionally I will, cook a little bit more than that. And, everyone's cooking desserts, so chocolate chip cookies, pretty good. Mother's Day in our house, we celebrated it. The boys went out and got flowers for Mom, so that was nice. Yes, those are dandelions, in case you're wondering. And we have a couple of guinea pigs on one of the Wild Wednesdays. When I was doing the fish, I did bring out peanut butter and Ghost and let them kind of run around a little bit. In order to take care of guinea pigs, you need to give them hay, because that's what they eat, and clean the bedding once or twice a week, depending on how dirty they are. And it can get quite expensive. So we buy generally these big bags, but the big bags ran out. And when I went to buy it from the store, they didn't have any. So I had to go back to my hardware store bag, which has a lot of wood dust in with the wood shavings. So I created this big giant sifter. So I took a big giant old TV box and I put it on the screen, and then we put the wood shavings on top and we shake it to get all the dust into the box and dump it out. And so that's a little bit of a process, but we have it down pretty well. You can see all the dust right there. And then finally, when I did find a store that had some of the wood shavings that we normally use without the dust in stock, then I ordered it online and I went to the store immediately. It was in Cambridge, so I had to drive a little bit, but hey, I haven't driven in a while, so it was okay. But the new reality of waiting every single store outside while the 5 people inside the store shop, that's taking some getting used to. So there's me buying the wood shavings. Oh, this is really good video, isn't it? And so for these 2 little tiny guinea pigs, I can hold them in both my hands. I need all this hay. It's a bale of hay that you feed horses, and they'll go through that in 3 months. And then their wood shavings. The wood shavings is compressed, so that wood shaving, that bag there, would overflow that garbage bin. So it does hold quite a bit. It's misleading. One of the things I find interesting, you probably recognize this, is at Costco, and I do find normalcy in shopping. A lot of people have been trapped in their homes and they haven't really gone out, and so the world seems so different. But when I go to the stores and certain other places and I walk around, it's nice to have that little bit of normalcy. This is what I've been used to for the past couple of decades of walking in a store and shopping. Granted, the aisles are a little bit less busy than they have been, but it's still normal until you get to the place where you have to check out. And yeah, that's not normal. A shield and a mask and all that going on. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We're planting, so we're gonna have a garden with, I'm not gonna tell you. I'll show you what these plants look like over a period of time. Next week, grade 11s, we're doing plants, and we were supposed to get you guys to plant this week. So next week we could see your plants, but we didn't get that information out to you. And this week's unit was pretty large, so to put even more on top of it would have been challenging. I have a lens that allows me to take night shots, so I was trying to take a shot of the supermoon, the last supermoon of the year, I guess was supposed to happen a few days ago. So I wasn't able to get trees in the foreground, which really gives a nice pop to a moon shot. So I took this picture a couple days ago. And grade 10s, we're doing reflections. So I went into my bathroom. It's so weird. If I was in class, it's like, hey, do you want to see a picture of my bathroom? You guys would look at me and go like, what? But here I am. It's like the new normal. You get to see inside our homes, and you're almost like, it's like we invite you in, and you're like almost a part of the family. That painting, so in our last house when we moved, we had to, to make the place look better than it was. We went to Michael's or something like that, some art store, and we bought some art and put it up on the walls and helped make the place look like a model home, even though we were living there. And then, well, we bought it, so we had to put it somewhere. So I guess the bathroom was as good a place as any. And this week we had one of your own, Leah Clark. She taught at this thing called the Power of Youth, and she represented the United Souls. She represented herself. She represented the David Suzuki community. She talked about the basically blackness and how to make a better representation of the black youth. And as well as youth in general, and to get a better message of we are trying to be good people. And there were students from BC all the way to Nova Scotia, and I think it was like 6 or 8 of them. I can't remember exactly how many. And so she was the only representation from Ontario. There's a link there. You probably can't remember it. You could always freeze it and type it in and go to where she spoke. But she spoke incredibly well. And if you haven't seen her video, I would strongly encourage you to check it out, because she was pretty amazing. During this whole setup, so I was in the background. I really had not much to do with it, but I'm in the background of Zoom. You won't see me on the Zoom on the channel. And when I go and turn my camera off, there's my image, and I don't know if my image ever comes through on the emails I send you, but it's my normal image. I'm dressed up like some kind of weird Jedi, and I'm wearing a Mr. Potato Head helmet, and I got some kind of lightsaber, and I look silly. I look like I want to hurt somebody. But so here we are with the minister, one of the ministers of diversity and youth, and she's speaking, and along with these students, and there's my image. So I had to change it. So on the fly, I made a new image. So the first time in like a decade, I made a new image. And I ordered something to arrive, and it didn't arrive. And I'm like, where is it? And the company's like, you know what? It did arrive yesterday. That goes to show how rarely I leave. And so I went up to my front door, and there it was. But, you know, they could have taken better care of it, I think, UPS. Anyway, that kind of brings me up to speed of what I've been doing. I've been reading some books as well, and I didn't realize I was going to talk for 18 minutes about all the stuff I've been doing in my life. I do want to share a couple of these, so maybe I'll save it for next week, and I'll talk about this book read I had, The Mystery of the Exploding Teeth and Under the Knife. They're two very interesting medical books, and they have some very interesting anecdotes. Okay, so now I'm going to go into a couple of things with the grade 10, 11, and 12. So each one will be about 2 minutes long. So grade 10s I'm going to do first. Grade 10s, so as a reminder, tomorrow, Friday, you have to submit several things. You are submitting your Google Doc interactive worksheet. You are submitting your Flipgrid solutions. So you have these sample problems, example problem, practice problem, and for your Flipgrid solutions, you should be submitting the yellow or the purple, green, yellow, or purple, green, yellow, or purple. Now, I had a help session yesterday. I'm kind of mixed up with my time because I'm doing this before tomorrow, if that makes any sense. And I think 5 of you came out of my class, so that's 20%, and we talked a little bit. I'm going to be doing more things next week, and I encourage you to come out to one of the 3 sessions. Myself is typically Wednesday, Ms. Dave is typically Tuesday, and Mr. Martin's, I'm not sure what day. I think he might be doing it Friday, and those lessons will go over some problems, talk about some tips. This week we talked about scientific notation and how to work with scientific notation so that you're not picking big numbers and small numbers and writing a whole bunch of zeros so it can fit on the page really nicely, and how to do some math with that. So I strongly encourage you to come out to those grade 10s. So your Flipgrid solution, make sure that you're completing that, getting that up in time, and then I'll look at that and give you some feedback. And your end of the week questions. So grade 10s, you don't really have much, you just have to focus on this math. All right, grade 11s. Grade 11s. This week was, it was a tough week. There's a lot of information. Normally this part, the fungus, we do in like 3 days, and the protist we do in like 3 or 4 days, and diversity of animals we do in probably a week and a half to 2 weeks, and we compress that all into 1 week. So this one I definitely put the green, the yellow, and the purple. The green was the minimum 3 hours. Of course there's going to be gaps, but if that's what you want to do, I mean, that's your choice. The yellow was more of a complete, so hopefully you're getting to that. Really the end of the week product, so hopefully you're working on this, is where you're going to use the Flipgrid, and you're going to have that very interesting organism, that fungus, that protist, or that animal. And then once you've given us information about it, you're going to go find someone else's biodiversity organism, and you're going to talk about how yours relates to it. The instructions are pretty self-explanatory, but that is the main end of the week Flipgrid submission. Okay, that's the main thing I'm looking for. You'll notice that end of the week, regardless if you're doing green, yellow, or purple, there's different levels that you can complete for that. So choose one. Most of this booklet, if you do it, most of it was yellow. There are some major learnings that I put in green for the fungus, protists, and animals, but most of it is yellow and purple. So because I recognize that there's a lot of information in here. So I always suggest starting with the green and yellow and leave the purple only if you have time, but there's a lot of stuff here, right? So this case study, it's a good place to work and apply your information. A lot of that's applying to the first week of learning when we were actually together. And the shape of life video questions, that's supposed to be collaborative. Do not, I said it in the instructions, absolutely do not do this on your own. It's way too much. I don't expect anyone to do all of it on their own. Just pick 1 or 2 questions and answer them. And maybe if enough people in the class are participating, you'll get a really good synthesis of animals. So as I said, this learning for this week, we normally would have done it over 2.5 weeks. And at the end of this, as your evaluation, you would have designed that arthropod. That's why I did the Wild Wednesday today on arthropods. I had like 10 of them. You would have designed your own arthropod and you would have presented it to the class with a major production. You would have come back with your summative, but we're not doing that. We're just doing this Google Sheet. So at the end of this week, what were you submitting, grade 11s? At the end of this week, if you jump down to the bottom, or is it somewhere around here? I've told you what you're submitting. You're submitting the Flipgrid, you're submitting the Google Worksheet. Those are the 2 main things. And depending on what level that you would like, you are submitting that much work. Okay, so that's grade 11. So grade 11s, we're done. And then grade 12s, osmoregulation, thermoregulation, homeostasis. So once again, there's a lot of information here. And so you have to decide, grade 12s, what you want to do, right? I know that you feel like you have a lot of pressure, but the pressure is really off because no matter what happens, whatever midterm mark you had at the beginning for the first 4 weeks of learning, that's the minimum mark you can receive. And so if you got a good mark, you can stick with it. But for most of you, I really strongly encourage you to keep on working, because if you don't, you're gonna have big gaps next year. If all you do is the green and all you want to do is 3 hours, then honestly, I'm not sure why you even bother, because there's such big gaps. If you are trying to do 3 hours and that's all you want to do, you're going to have big gaps. There's no other way to say it. If you do the yellow, then at least you're getting most of the gaps filled in and you'll be okay-ish. No matter what you do, purple, all the way, you're still going to have gaps because we've reduced the amount of content so that we can do this distance learning. But if you go through here and watch some of the videos, answer the Learn 360, you'll see some of my graphics. Obviously, the assessment is very different. There are 2 major evaluations. The 2 major evaluations in this unit, we jump down to the end here. I've given you dates. One is the May 29th. It's a druggy carousel. Most of you chose your drugs when you did the chem sketch. So just use the same drug and you'll see the instructions coming up soon. And then the end of unit task is not a test. There will be some questions, end of unit questions, but it's this task. So hopefully you read through it. And I've given you some examples that you can take a look at. I didn't put the full examples on. So work your way through, do your best to fill in your gaps as much as possible.